Lords of Chaos, the movie metalheads love to hate and has the mainstreamers quaking in their little boots. I love watching reviews of this movie by metalheads who cannot stomp on it hard enough, and non-metalheads who think this is the most darkest, bleakest, messed up story they've ever heard. Clearly they didn't see my video on Bianca Brust. And oh dear god, the people who talk about this movie who have no idea about the true story or metal subculture in general, who read the book thinking it was an accurate history, I don't know whether to throw my computer out of the window in rage or just laugh at their naivety. I choose to laugh. I go through less windows and laptops that way. Look, I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, and those thoughts are likely going to piss you off. Let's get into it, shall we? For those of you who haven't seen Lords of Chaos or who have no idea what this movie is about, this is your last chance to bow out before I spoil the entire thing. First, final, and only warning. In a nutshell, Lords of Chaos is a 2018 biopic directed by Jonas Åkerlund and tells the story of Øystein Euronymous Arseth, played by Rory Culkin, who was one of the founders of the second wave of black metal in the band Mayhem, took things a little too far, and ended up with 23 stab wounds courtesy of one Count Varg Vikernes, played by Emery Cohen. Sorry, I just need a moment to appreciate the delicious poetic justice of neo-Nazi Varg being played by a Jewish actor. Tasty. This is what I imagine Slurm must taste like. To add irony upon irony, this movie is far more infamous than its lead character, as it is reviled and hated by metalheads of all types, decried by the black metal musicians who are portrayed in it, and rejected by those who were inspired and influenced by its subject. The film's title is derived from a book which purports to chart the history of the second wave of black metal and the violence that erupted in Norway during the late 1980s and throughout the 90s. A book which has been heavily mocked by Mayhem and black metal fans alike for its inaccuracies and inflammatory content since the day it was first published. Perhaps not Jonas Åkerlund's best idea to title the movie after the book. Such a move was inevitably going to alienate the very audience the film wanted to attract, and it's become one of the first things metalheads use to justify their hatred for the film as they yell about inaccuracies, inconsistencies, and really small petty things. All this despite the opening titles warning us that this movie is based on truth, lies, and what actually happened. Well fine, let's dissect this sucker and see if it deserves the hate. The biopic is told from the perspective of Euronymous and comes with a narration from the man himself. We begin in Norway, in the year 1987, with Mayhem already formed, consisting of Euronymous, Necrobutcher, and Mannheim.
Four-string crushfucker, Necrobutcher! And on drums, give it up to the devil's favorite demon, Mannheim! We are Mayhem!
This is true. Mayhem is a Norwegian band, and it was formed by Euronymous, Necrobutcher, and Mannheim in 1984. Then Mannheim leaves and Hellhammer steps in. Also true. Then Euronymous says that Mayhem need a vocalist. This one's a little murkier, as the movie implies they didn't have a vocalist. By 1987, Mayhem had recorded and released their first EP, Death Crush, on which vocal duties were shared between Necrobutcher, Euronymous, and Mannheim, as well as Sven-Erik Maniac Christiansen and Eric Messiah Norheim. I'm not going to go into the details of the hows and whys of all of this. Suffice to say, one could argue that Mayhem had too many vocalists, meaning no permanent vocalist. So this moment is kind of true, but also kind of false, so I'm just going to place this whole thing into a gray area. Euronymous writes a letter saying Mayhem are looking for a new vocalist. They receive an application through the mail containing a letter, a tape, and a rotting crucified mouse postmarked Transylvania from someone named Dead. There are 3 different stories about how Pelle found out Mayhem needed a vocalist. I'm not going to detail them here, I already covered this in a video about Pelle as part of my Murdered by Metal series, but I will put a link up to that video for those who'd like to go and watch it. As for the movie, I'm going to put the advertisement for the vocalist in a gray area. The rest, however, about the letter and the dead mouse are true, including the handwritten Transylvania postmark. Dead moves to Norway, and from his first interaction with Euronymous, we realize that Dead ain't quite right. True, Dead moved to Norway, and he wasn't quite right due to childhood trauma. Euronymous and Pelle move in together, but they're having some problems. I mean, Euronymous and Pelle did eventually move into a house together along with Hellhammer, but it wasn't right away, and Hellhammer didn't hang around the house very much. Again, for details, see my video about Pelle. So I think the best place for this is the gray area. Pelle is depressed and Euronymous is losing patience. He goads Pelle to kill himself, holding the barrel of the household shotgun up against Pelle's head.
You know, there's a way out if you're so fucking depressed. One shot to the head and it's all over. No more pain. All right, come on, fucker, get up!
Foreshadowing. And manages to get him out of bed by claiming he can see a cat out of the window, as Pelle apparently can't resist the urge to hunt cats. Insert obligatory pussy hunting joke here. As they're chasing the cat through the woods with Euronymous carrying the shotgun, Pelle grabs the barrel and puts it to his head. Foreshadowing intensifies. Demanding Euronymous pull the trigger, Euronymous pikes, and Pelle walks off laughing.
Fuck, do you mean it? Pull the fucking trigger! Ah!
Trouble in Paradise bits and the reasons for it, all true. The predilection for hunting and murdering cats? This is a story that gets handed around, and one of his friends has told a story about Pelle chasing a cat, but he honestly killed more small rodents than he did cats. Fuck it, I'm gonna put that one as false just for the sake of variety. Also, the whole forest scene was made up. As far as I'm aware, Pelle never challenged Euronymous to actually kill him. So hey look, another false! The band rehearse, then relax with some partying where they say some cringe dialogue.
You are terror incarnate.
Terror incarnate.
The ruler of chaos and death.
Yeah.
And remember, you have to get your poses right, too. Everyone around you are disgusting, worthless little insects. We are lords of chaos.
Destroyer of worlds.
True, much rehearsing occurred and many parties were had by all, while I'm sure multiple cringe conversations transpired. At this party, Euronymous bumps into a strange, unknown man. Foreshadowing. He also meets a young woman by the name Anne Marit. Anne Marit was a character invented solely for this movie. She's supposed to be a stand-in for all of Euronymous' girlfriends, so a big fat false on this one. After the party, we watch Pelle burying his clothes and get a fantastic shot of Jack Kilmer's ass. Then they're all packing pig heads into their van while Pelle digs up his clothes, and then they're getting ready for their first concert. True, though I don't know if Pelle would strip to bury his clothes or would go out carrying clothes to bury while wearing other clothes. But clothes burying did occur, so marking that as true. Pigheads are still a staple of Mayhem gigs, and they gotta get them there somehow, so another point in the true pile. Pelle inhales some dead birds before going on stage. And And we're back to the gray area. Pella did inhale from a bag holding dead birds in it, but that was when Mayhem were recording the only 2 studio tracks that Pella sang on. So I feel like I'm copping out with the gray area stuff, but fuck it, this is my video, so gray area. Pella does his onstage shtick of cutting himself with knives before breaking a glass bottle found on stage and cutting himself with big shards from that. The crowd tries to eat a bunch of pig heads, and suddenly we're in a kebab shop watching an impromptu after party as Pella experiences the wonders of duct tape as an improvised bandage. I can't verify whether they had an impromptu after party at a kebab shop, but yes, Pella's onstage shtick did include cutting himself with knives, and in one memorable incident when Necrobutcher had deliberately given him blunt knives, Pella decided to break a glass bottle he found on stage and use shards of that to cut himself much deeper. And if there's no rotting animal heads on stage, can you even call it a black metal show? There was even one memorable case a few years back where one of the Mayhem band members threw a sheep skull that they had on stage into the crowd and cracked a guy's skull open with it. So all that, absolutely true. That random stranger from the party is at the kebab shop. We learn his name is Christian, and he's fangirling all over Euronymous, who, in true Euronymous fashion, sneers at the Scorpion's badge on Christian's battle vest.
Scorpions?
Christian is crushed as he desperately desires to impress Euronymous. See? Look, I hate scorpions now too. Is this a black metal biopic or a romance movie? We've had the meet cute and initial denied overture, let the desperate scheming for attention begin! This is all false. Varg and Euronymous had been corresponding by letter for a while, and Varg did meet Pella a few times. There's a rumor Varg sent Pella the ammunition he would later use to commit suicide. Spoilers. But that story isn't true either. So this whole meet cute section is in the false column. As for Scorpions, well, the real Varg Vigernes was so insulted by the implication he was a fan of the band that he took to YouTube to post a video where he vehemently denied he'd ever been a fan of those German rock and roll posers. Bit of a dick move to Scorpions, but it's Varg, what did you expect? So negative points for a falsehood there. Now we're back at the Mayhem house, and Pella's alone in his room while Euronymous is out visiting his family. As Euronymous drives back home, Pella kills himself in excruciating detail from slit wrists and throat to the final headshot. Euronymous comes home, finds him, and reacts accordingly by heading out to buy a camera so he can take photos. Then he calls people and lets them know
Pella's gone home.
Back to Sweden?
No, he blew his head off.
all tragically true, including the dialogue between Hellhammer and Euronymous as reported by Euronymous. Necrobutcher, Hellhammer, and Euronymous meet up at the house after Pella's death, and Hellhammer hands over the photos Euronymous had him develop. Euronymous talks about using one of the photos for an album cover, spreading the rumor he ate part of Pella's brain, and hands out necklaces made of Pella's skull. Necrobutcher is disgusted by all of this and quits Mayhem. Oh, this one's fun. Okay, well, let's start with the easy stuff. Yes, Hellhammer developed the photos. There was a rumor spread that Euronymous cooked up some of Pella's brain and fed it to the band, and Euronymous did make necklaces with bits of Pella's skull that he collected from the scene. However, it should be noted that those pieces were less chunks as portrayed in the movie and more slivers. Whether or not Necrobutcher left Mayhem, we can at least give points for this being the event that broke their friendship. As for the album cover, unfortunately, yes, it's true, a photo was used for the cover of one of their albums, though it was for a bootleg album and not any official studio albums. And I have been doing some research on this. There is a chance that the use of that photo may not have been Euronymous' idea, but I haven't really been able to confirm it, so I'm going to gray area this one. To be honest, given that all the people involved in creating that cover are dead, we're probably never going to know the true story behind it all. Euronymous decides to move out and open Helvete, a heavy metal music store that has a cool basement where all his black metal buddies can hang out and be their truest cultist selves. He also begins work on creating his own label,
Death like silence.
Death like silence.
Euronymous had created
Death like silence.
before opening the store, though the movie never mentions
Death like silence.
until this part in the story, so I'm gonna list it as true along with the rest. Christian drives down to Oslo to pay court to Euronymous, and the two bond over a glass of milk. I mean, Hitler. This video hasn't been demonetized yet, it is now. Oh, and we witness our first name change from Christian to Varg, cause it's the word for wolf. Regardless, Euronymous admits Varg into his inner sanctum and their bond deepens as they discuss vegetarianism and burning down churches over a romantic dinner of kebab and coke. I'll give points, as Varg was a Nazi. Euronymous was less a Nazi for principle and more for rebellion, and he was far more into communism than fascism. As for Varg's vegetarianism claim, well, like all things that come out of that man's mouth, there's a lot of bullshit to sift through. From an interview posted on Varg's official site, burzum.org, comes this quote: "No, I am not a vegetarian. For some time I tried to be semi-vegetarian, eating only fish, birds, and no red meat, but I don't know if I have an opinion on vegetarianism. So, fuck it, I'm calling this as true. Fight me." Euronymous listens to Varg's demo tape for his one-man band Burzum and likes what he hears. He tells Varg what he thinks and how he would love to release a Burzum album through his label, but can't afford it. Varg pipes up that his mom will pay for it. Cause what's more attractive than a guy whose mom pays for everything? Couldn't find any firm info on when or where this deal was made or what Euronymous was wearing during the conversation, but I am giving points for Varg's mom paying for everything, as that is true. The two go on a date to a local studio and record Varg's album using the shittiest equipment the studio has, because black metal. All true. Here's a list of all the crappy equipment that was used to record Burzum's first album, Burzum. Then they hang out with friends, discuss gassing a bunch of Jews, because Varg, party and have a threesome with Euronymous' made-up girlfriend. I mean, I assume. It's not explicitly stated, but the evidence is there for those paying close attention who aren't distracted by Sky Ferreira's tits. Obviously the girlfriend stuff is false, because she's not real, and real Varg made a point of vehemently denying that he and Euronymous ever had a threesome. Varg's album arrives at the shop, and Varg is pissy when he discovers Euronymous added one word to one song title on the album, which is probably the least amount of label interference ever caused to any album in the history of recorded music. Varg starts demanding Euronymous pay him for album sales, which Euronymous explains can't happen until A, they've covered costs, and 2, people actually start buying the fucking thing. They discuss coming up with an idea for a promotion, but never actually land on any firm ideas. Truth points for Varg demanding money when they hadn't even sold one fucking copy. Varg decides to work off his anger by taking a walk through nature, wanders up to a church, and burns that fucker down. Why? Something 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 black metal, something 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 Viking.
Something 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 complete.
Yes, Varg burned churches. That's like the second thing he's most famous for. Euronymous hears about the burnt church while eating at the kebab shop. Seriously, was this movie just sponsored by this one kebab shop? And is impressively horrified at Varg's actions. Euronymous takes credit for inspiring Varg to burn the church, and the tension ratchets up a few more notches. Then there's a montage.
We're gonna need a montage.
Of the Wolf Star rising and the Euronymous star, well, continuing to shine brightly but being grumpy at the rise of the Wolf Star. So Euronymous latches onto the rising Wolf Star by inducting him into mayhem, gifting him with a promise ring, skull necklace, and they celebrate by blowing up a church, which fails dramatically, so they just set fire to it instead. Oh, and we encounter the second name change from Varg to Count Grishny. Yes, Varg joined Mayhem as their bassist, though he wasn't gifted with any body parts. I have no idea if they celebrated by burning a church, and while that totally feels like something they do, Euronymous was only ever linked to one church burning by the police, that of Holmenkollen Chapel, though he never faced trial due to having been mistaken for a pincushion by Varg before the trial date. But that's not to say Euronymous may not have assisted in burning others, and the one church burning Euronymous was linked to did involve a failed bomb, so that part's right but also wrong. Fuck it. Break even on this one? Then Faust murders a gay guy who propositioned him. True. Faust confesses the next day at the shop, and Euronymous is initially freaked out but manages to control himself and be all metal about it. So the three go and burn down another church to celebrate. Faust, Varg, and Euronymous all did burn down Holmenkollen together, but as mentioned that had a bomb involved. Fuck it, we haven't put anything in the grey area for a while. They all go to a Motorhead concert and tell all their mates about what Faust did and the burning of the church, which Euronymous takes mega credit for inspiring everyone to do.
And the plot thickens a bit more.
Also true. Well, I don't know if they were at a Motorhead concert when word got out, but yes, Faust told his friends what he'd done, and yes, they all agreed to keep it quiet. What's even more amazing is that they all actually did for like a year. But the pressure is getting to Euronymous and he starts to feel the heat, you know, from all the burning churches. So he closes the shop and moves into an apartment where he can concentrate on and Mayhem's next album. Yeah, remember Mayhem, the actual band, the music part of this whole story? Yeah, we're back to that bit. He did close the shop, though the story goes that he was pressured by his parents to give it up due to all the attention the metal scene was getting from the press and police. No, wait, now Euronymous is having a photo session with his made-up girlfriend, and now they're having sex. Yay. While Euronymous did pose for many photo shoots, none of them were conducted by Anne Morit, as again, she is a created character, so fuck it, break even on this one too. Then Euronymous has a nightmare and we see director Jonas Åkerlund's experience as a music video director really come shining through. Oh look, we're back to the music part of the story. Hey, it's that recording studio again, and Varg suggests burning down another church which they want to use as the album cover. Euronymous is uncomfortable about this, but there's no time to discuss it now as actual Mayhem vocalist Attila Kassar's son is here to record his vocals. True, Die Mysterious Dom Satanas was recorded in the same studio as Burzum, and the cathedral that is on the album cover had been targeted by the group with a plan to blow it up as a kind of promotion when the album was released. Varg calls Euronymous and the two discuss who's the truest cult. This is also the scene where Varg is clearly taking the whole thing way too seriously. They can't decide which of them is the personification of
true Norwegian black metal.
So Varg takes the initiative and organizes an interview with a reporter. Initially waving them off as a bunch of idiot wanker Nazi lovers wanting attention, Varg mentions a detail about the church burning that wasn't in the newspapers, and they take him seriously, though Varg doesn't stop coming off as a wanker. Also, Blackthorn offers everyone tea.
Tea, anyone?
I can't speak as to the offer of tea, but yeah, this is true. Varg did organize an interview with the newspaper. The interviewer did think he was a lying idiot. Varg did leave a rabbit on the steps of Fantoft Church, and he did admit this to the interviewer. He also boasted about the murder Faust committed. Now who's taking credit for the works of others, After the interview comes out, Varg is called in for questioning by the Norwegian police but is released. Faust and Euronymous are packing up Helvete, and Euronymous mentions he wants to kill Varg and rants about zapping him with a stun gun, dragging him into the woods, and making a snuff torture film of it all in true drug cartel style. Then he gets a phone call from someone at Kerrang magazine asking to talk to Euronymous, the creator of
true Norwegian black metal,
during which even Euronymous trips over Varg's multiple self-appointed names. During the conversation, Euronymous also has a flashback to finding Pella's body and crying over his dead friend. Accuracy all over the place here. The article did result in Varg's questioning and release. Euronymous did complain that Varg had ruined everything and he was going to hit Varg with a stun gun, drag him into the woods, and snuff film him to death. Who he told this to, where and when are facts I haven't been able to discover, so I'm not going to judge that one. Euronymous did also get a call from Kerrang magazine to do an interview about
true Norwegian black metal.
Euronymous and Varg meet up to discuss the Kerrang article. Varg's on the cover, but the article is all about Euronymous? The penultimate confrontation occurs where the rose-colored glasses are finally ripped off and each realizes just how much of a dick the other is. They break up and Varg even gives Euronymous back his promise ring, piece of Pella's skull, which Euronymous admits is just a piece of chicken bone. I'm just going to mark this conversation as, well, nothing, because I sincerely doubt a conversation this specific was had, but movies got a movie and make it clear the breakup has occurred, though I will mark false points for giving back the skull piece and the revelation that it's chicken bone. Faust tells Blackthorn what Euronymous said about the snuff film, and an inevitable conclusion is drawn by the audience. Euronymous and his made-up girlfriend fight about Varg, and she convinces him Varg's just not worth the drama. Euronymous agrees and writes up a contract giving Varg his Burzum album back, which he mails off. Then Blackthorn tells Varg what Euronymous said, and the telephone game of rumor is complete. The inevitable conclusion becomes even more evident to the audience. Okay, so while Varg did learn of what Euronymous had said vis-a-vis stun gun, woods, and torture, the daisy chain rumor mill pathway is unknown. And while Euronymous did send Varg a letter/contract via post, relinquishing all rights to his music back to Varg, there was no girlfriend involved in that decision. Varg receives the contract from Euronymous, gets angry, and storms out of the house with a pissant pocket knife in hand. He and Blackthorn drive down to Oslo while Euronymous gets a haircut from his made-up girlfriend. Varg did receive the contract, he did sign it, but instead of mailing back, he did drive down to Oslo in the middle of the night with Blackthorn. But again, since the girlfriend didn't exist, Euronymous didn't receive a haircut from her. Then the girlfriend buggers off just in time for Varg to arrive, where he demonstrates how much all that stabbing practice has paid off, stopping for a brief rest to make and drink some chocolate milk before getting back to the stabbing. Euronymous dies. The end. Yes, Varg showed up in the middle of the night with Blackthorn in tow. I heard one story that Blackthorn stayed in the car, another he waited in the stairwell of the apartment building. Regardless of his actual location, he was there, but only in an observational capacity, and without any real knowledge of what Varg planned, so I'm labeling that as true. Euronymous, however, had been asleep when Varg rocked up, and Euronymous greeted him in his underwear. But he was stabbed multiple times, and he fled into the stairwell where the body was found the next morning. But Varg didn't stop halfway through to make and drink a glass of milk. I counted each stab wound, there were way more than 23. Yay, it's over, that's it, the movie's over, we're done! Or are we? No, we're not. Not even close. Many people have written and said many things about this movie, and a few recurring complaints continually pop up. They are, in no particular order, I agree that this wasn't the best choice title-wise, but come on, it's not like they could have called it Pure Fucking Armageddon or something. Though that would have been a great title. Even Jonas Åkerlund acknowledges the negative association fans have with the book. He bought the rights to the novel many years ago as part of his research, and in an interview included in the bonus features of the Lords of Chaos Blu-ray, he discusses how the title basically just got lodged in his mind, and when he sat down to finally write the screenplay, decided Lords of Chaos was as good a title as any. At least it's somewhat relevant to the story. Regardless of the quality of the novel, it's still known as being about black metal and mayhem, and still fits even if you don't know about the book. Just because a movie has a shitty title doesn't mean it's going to be bad. We don't judge books by their covers, so let's not start judging movies by their titles, okay? As you may have noticed from the clips I've already shown, the cast all have American accents. The main cast, Rory Culkin, Jack Kilmer, and Emery Cohen, and I suppose Sky Ferreira as well. The supporting cast is filled with Brits, a few Swedes, and a Hungarian thrown in for fun. The only Norwegian actor in this movie is the guy who plays Magne Andreasen, the gay man that Faust murders. I feel compelled to inquire precisely how many people who have watched this movie are familiar with any Scandinavian accent, never mind being able to differentiate between them. Hey, let's play a game. Listen to these different voices speaking English, and you tell me which one's a Norwegian. And no cheating by reading the comments.
This is a magic beginner course cassette tape for beginners. Everybody can learn how to do magic in your own home with this cassette tape.
Like this guy's from Iceland. Oh. He must be broke, he must be broke, he must be broke, he must be broke, he must be... This guy's from Norway, he must be rich, he must be rich, he must be rich, he must be rich. This guy's from Finland, he must be drunk, he must be drunk, he must be drunk. This guy's from Sweden, he works in Norway, he works in Norway, he works in Norway. This guy's from Denmark. I can't understand the word this man says at any given moment.
The meaning of the word, the meaning is that you have now poured enough coffee into my cup. And it goes like
They're one of the best teams in the tournament, whatever. So if it's best to meet them in the first game or in the last game, I don't know. It's always important to have some points out of the first game.
Let's be real about this, the cost of a dialect coach is prohibitive at the best of times, and this film wasn't exactly working with a mega Hollywood blockbuster budget, alright? It was made by Vice, for Christ's sake. Jonas Åkerlund did discuss the accents in an interview for Consequence.net, saying he wanted to appeal to as wide an audience as possible, as black metal has expanded beyond its Finno-Scandinavian borders, and because he'd seen movies where actors attempted accents and it just failed horrifically. And that's with the relatively easy and common accents, never mind the more obscure Swedish and Norwegian ones. So take all of that, shove it in a blender, then hold your nose and drink it down, you whiny bitch. It's not like this is the first biopic which completely fails to ensure the actors have a nation or era-specific accent, nor will it be the last. Yeah, because Jamie Foxx is a dead ringer for Ray Charles, Joaquin Phoenix looks exactly like Johnny Cash, and oh my god, which one's Queen Elizabeth I and which one's Cate Blanchett? I can't tell! It's interesting how this criticism is lobbed at Rory Culkin as Euronymous and Emery Cohen as Varg, but Jack Kilmer's Pella seems to pass. Call me crazy, but I don't think Jack Kilmer looks more like Pella than Rory or Emery look like Euronymous and Varg respectively. Jack is also the one wearing the worst wig. Rory Culkin used his own hair, which is why his roots keep creeping in at inconsistent moments after he dyes his hair. While Emery Cohen wore a wig and they gave him Varg's chin scar. Seriously guys, the look-alike argument is so weak. Though I will give points to one comment I saw complaining that Rory was too buff to look like Euronymous. I mean, look at Rory's rock-hard abs, and then compare that to Euronymous' soft belly. Belly, belly, belly.
Norwegian black metal.
Cringy? Yes, there are some admittedly cringy moments in this movie, but I have a theory about the repeated cries of
True Norwegian black metal.
which stems from Jonas Åkerlund being Swedish and having ties to the Swedish black metal camp, which has been at war with the Norwegian black metal camp since the second wave of black metal began. Jonas Åkerlund spent a year as the session drummer for Bathory, the band that is credited with being a massive influence on the Norwegian black metal movement, so I just assume these repeated cries
True Norwegian black metal.
are Åkerlund poking fun at the Norwegian black metal fans and saying, "We created it first." But that's just my theory. Who knows, maybe Åkerlund thought that the small portion of mainstream audiences who might watch the movie would need the constant reminder of exactly which of the multiple subgenres of metal this movie is based in. And it's only said 10 times throughout the movie.
Norwegian black metal.
True Norwegian black metal.
Thought this place was true metal.
It was true Norwegian black metal.
True Norwegian black metal?
True Norwegian black metal.
Norwegian black metal.
True Norwegian black metal. True black metal music.
I created a whole new musical genre. True Norwegian black metal. And I created mayhem. What the fuck have you done lately? Poser.
And even then, it's only during the beginning and the end of the film. There's a whole middle section where the phrase or a variation thereof is never once uttered. I've decided to combine these two as they're basically saying the same thing. Euronymous was a CU in the NT. He was the personification of a terrible person. If you look up the meaning of complete and utter asshole, you'll find his picture. If you look up the meaning of wanker, you'll find a picture of Varg. May I remind audiences that Euronymous was 25 years old when he died? Remember your own late teens and early 20s? Remember how you thought you knew everything about the world and how it worked? How lame your parents' generation was? How pathetic the masses were for their brainless attraction to all that is popular and shallow? How you were going to take on the world and show everyone how awesome you are? I see you shaking your heads at me and I know you're lying. Even the 3 people watching this who aren't metalheads likely felt the same way. We were all a bunch of narcissistic, selfish, self-righteous, optimistic to the point of delusional idiots who didn't know nearly as much as we like to think we did during that period of our lives. Or you are a bunch of narcissistic, selfish, self-righteous, optimistic to the point of delusional idiots who don't know nearly as much as you like to think if you're in that period of your life right now. And if you are, damn kids, get off my lawn! But none of that makes us bad people, just young and stupid. Euronymous isn't around to defend himself anymore and hasn't been for over 30 years. It becomes easier and easier to just lump all the bad things about black metal at Euronymous' door and blame him for everything that went wrong. There are plenty of stories about how Euronymous actually really did care about Pella and tried to help him. As one Redditor put it, Pella didn't take the help Euronymous offered. If you want to know more about the relationship, again, see my video about Pella, and my eventual video about Euronymous. Stop demonizing him. It's lazy and dehumanizing. Points I'd like to mention here. A, what the fuck are you talking about? There's mayhem and black metal all over this fucking thing. And 2, look, music licensing is a tough gig, alright? It's complicated, expensive, and involved. It's not as simple as saying, hey, let's get some dark thrown in there. While some bands are more persnickety about licensing than others. For an example, see the video I made about how difficult it is to license any Led Zeppelin songs. There's also extravagant costs involved. Obtaining rights is tricky as you need to get permission from both those holding the master as well as synchronizing rights, pay the fees. It's messy. And in Mayhem's case, Euronymous was actually really great at giving and sharing credit, and consequently, there are a lot of people whose approval needs to be obtained before these songs can be licensed. If people are really curious about this process, let me know in the comments. Maybe one day I'll do a video explaining the whole thing, but for now, let's just say it's an arduous convolution and leave it at that, okay? And to further prove my point, tendency to deify the object of their fanaticism, believing that everything their idol does is part of a bigger picture and a sign of their genius. This was never young guys fucking around and finding out. No, they were prodigies. They were highly intelligent and burning churches to make a statement, to reinforce what their music was saying and redefining what black metal was. Well, I hate to break it to you, but no, they were just stupid kids. Let's face reality here. For all Varg's waffle about paganism and returning to their roots and traditionalism, burning shit is fun. Fire good! Bad inner pyromania. Bad. Must repress arsonist tendencies. Sorry about that. Where were we? Oh right, young people stupid, burning stuff fun. These guys weren't sitting in the basement of Helvete discussing philosophy, politics, and religion. Well, maybe the philosophy and politics of cornflake consumption. But they likely did sit around talking about bands and sex while collectively sneering at other types of metal and bands, decrying them all as posers. No geniuses here, man. Just a bunch of idiot kids. As part of his research, Ackerland was able to get his hands on the police files and noticed that in the crime scene photos of Euronymous' body, his hair had been cut. But regardless of who cut what and when in real life, even if Euronymous did cut his own hair, I doubt he kept having flashbacks to Pella's death and his nightmares while it happened. This is known as symbolism, when something happens that may not reflect reality, but is meant to adhere to that old visual storytelling law, show, don't tell.
You can't just have your characters announce how they feel. That makes me feel angry!
In this movie, the intricate shots of Pella are the clues to show that Euronymous is finally recovering from his trauma and understanding just how idiotic all this one-upmanshipness really is. All these complaints do is simply remind me of all the screaming that went on when Metallica released Load back in 1995 and they cut their hair! Or more recently when Floor Jansen of Nightwish got a haircut and was piled on because how dare she change how she look in a minor way that isn't permanent and has absolutely no impact on her ability and performance. Remember, movie, not documentary. These, documentaries. This, movie. Big difference between the two. If you're gonna criticize, criticize intelligently. Really? Huh, that's interesting. How terrible that Mayhem had no ties to this movie at all, were not involved in it in any way, never once visited the set, and how so many black metalheads and professional black metal musicians think this movie is shit. Now on to more intelligent criticisms. We're talking here about the weird juxtaposition of the kind of bland ordinariness of like 85% of the film and the extremely gory and violent 15%, consisting of Pella's suicide, the murder of Magne Andreasen by Faust, and the film's climax of Euronymous' brutal death, which is admittedly jarring if you don't know to expect it. Especially the murder Faust commits. That one kinda comes out of left field even when you are expecting it. It's gory to the point where some reviewers have called this a horror movie, and certainly the deaths are very graphic and leave nothing to the imagination, but that's kind of the point. Fans romanticize Pella's death. I once saw Pella's post-mortem album cover described as poignant. May I remind viewers that album cover features a color photo of Pella taken after he committed suicide by means which included a shotgun to the head. The murder of Magne Andreasen committed by Faust has been overshadowed by the actions of Pella, Euronymous, and Varg. The film reminds us that Faust killed a man mainly because he could. Certainly he was propositioned by a gay man in an era when homosexuals were equated with perverts and predators, but Faust was in a well-known cruising spot for gay men and he knew the area's reputation. While Magne's actions may well have pushed Faust over the line, he already had one foot over that line before a single finger was laid upon him. As for Euronymous' murder, given the 23 stab wounds, 16 of which were in the back and 2 in the head, I think it's fair to say that this was not an easy death. The man ran from his apartment into the stairwell and down a few sets of stairs. You can't tell me he wasn't bleeding and crying on the way. It's not as though Varg stabbed him gently. Given the hate that fueled the attack, the movie was probably restrained in how it portrayed the event. The point of the violence is to show how honestly brutal these moments were. Too often when people talk about these events, they adopt a clinical, or worse, reverent tone when discussing the grisly details. I don't think Jonas Åkerlund was going too far when he dared to show these moments in all their awful, brutal reality. Someone mentioned this on Reddit, I couldn't stop laughing and I figured, what the hell, fair criticism, not enough snow, indeed. I can understand why this likely wasn't presented as it has been described. It would have taken longer, which would have eaten into the runtime, and when you're trying to make a biopic, you need to spare every moment you can. So the real version of the story, in a nutshell, is that Pelle went out into the woods with his knife, sat under a tree, and cut his wrists and throat. But he didn't die, so he went back into the house, wrote his final letter, then shot himself in the head. His final letter was much longer than the 2 sentences shown in the movie, but they did include the most famous line, which was the opening sentence, "Excuse all the blood." Also, the answering machine message left by Pelle's father. That message never happened, however the content of that message is sort of true and relevant. Again, I'm not going to get too detailed with this, but the short version is the last time Pelle saw his family, his father had given him a pile of various art school brochures to go through in the hopes of luring him back to Sweden, furthering his education in hopes of obtaining a more reliable creative job, but more importantly, to try and entice Pelle back to his very strong support network of friends and family. However, in the message his father leaves, he says that Pelle had been accepted into a Swedish college when in reality Pelle was simply considering whether to apply to a college and move back to Sweden. And while we're on the subject, was I the only one watching this movie knowing what was going to happen and still kind of willing Euronymous to drive just that little bit faster, arrive just that little bit earlier and stop what was going to happen? No? Just me. Okay. Allow me to preface this point by saying that I have nothing against Sky Ferreira as an actor. She's no better or worse than any member of the cast in this movie, and this is not a personal attack against her. But seriously, why is she here? What is the purpose of her character? Other than sex and photography, she offers nothing until the last 20 minutes or so when she convinces Euronymous to break up with Varg and mature the fuck up. The rest of the movie, she's just there, usually in some state of undress, so I guess she's the tits of the movie? She's apparently, as I mentioned, a composite character who is supposed to represent all of the girlfriends Euronymous had during his life. One review I read described her as the black metal manic pixie dream girl, and she really is. For those who aren't familiar with the manic pixie dream girl trope, go watch these movies. She's the quirky, eccentric, no fucks given romantic interest of the main protagonist whose sole purpose is to waltz in, teach him a life lesson, then waltz out, never to be seen or heard from again. And it's annoying! Euronymous could have easily reached his decision to cut ties with Varg on his own, and his maturity also could have been shown without having to resort to showing him as a better romantic partner than Varg, with all his threesomes, casual sex, and general groupies. And while we're on the subject, my second favorite Reddit comment, no black metal guy gets that many girls. I assume the gratuitous sex scenes were mainly to reinforce the point that they were all young, dumb, and full of cum, though I don't think they needed to be so gratuitous to make that point. Personally, I've never been a fan of sex scenes. I can think of no better way to bring a movie to a screaming halt with a scene that offers nothing to the story than by including a sex scene.
You like them crispy or you like them soft? And I said, well, I like them crispy. And he said, no. That's better when they're really soft. You have to put the milk and let it just rest for a while and then you eat it.
Okay, I admit this is just my personal disappointment, but I would have loved if they'd included this conversation somewhere, especially to help reinforce the idea that these were idiot kids having idiot conversations about the most random crap. And I think it would have been so easy to slip in somewhere too, just a few lines of conversation that gets interrupted or something. It would have been fun and a nice extra Easter egg for the Mayhem fans. Yes, believe it or not, Euronymous was not dark-haired like Rory Culkin is, but was actually a natural blonde. So he would... And while, yes, Rory from his natural hair color instead of beginning the film with blonde hair and then dyeing it. As a fellow naturally long-haired brunette, bleaching my hair is a long and costly process, and honestly, to bleach Rory's hair for a few minutes of blondness just wouldn't be worth it, even if they did have the budget. Having said all that, however, once you notice the continuity error of Rory Culkin's roots appearing and disappearing throughout the movie, it's hard to unsee it. I know this because I pointed it out to a friend and she yelled at me for ruining her immersive experience. So now I've probably ruined your immersive experience when watching this film too. I regret nothing. The song playing in the car when they're listening to the tape is Sickness of Humanity, which is from the Morbid demo The Last Supper. This is inaccurate, as we know from Necro Butcher himself that the tape Pella sent was actually a copy of Morbid's most famous album, December Moon, which did not feature the song Sickness of Humanity. I admit this one made me angry. I couldn't really find a reason why director Jonas Åkerlund decided to make this change, as it is one of the few rumors surrounding Euronymous' treatment of Pella's body that is true. Not only have people confirmed that they have pieces of Pella's skull brain and lead pellets from the shotgun shell that killed him, but one went up for auction several years ago and was sold for a few $1,000s. I can only assume the point of forcing Euronymous to admit the necklaces were fake was to reinforce how he was all show and little substance, but the point had already well been made by the time this scene plays out, so I don't know. If you have any insight, feel free to share it in the comments. What separates this movie from most musician biopics is the connection the director has with music, heavy metal, and black metal specifically. For those who don't know, Jonas Åkerlund was friends with legendary black metal musician Korthon, the founder of the Swedish black metal band Bathory. He was their drummer for a year before, in his own words, he realized he was a better filmmaker than he ever would have been a drummer, so he left the band and pursued filmmaking, specializing in music videos. His first music video was for the band Candlemass and their song Bewitched. One of the reasons this particular music video is so popular with the black metal crowd is because this little doomstommer back here, this one right here, this one, you see him? That is none other than the man himself, Per Dead Olin. Jonas met Pella back when he was drumming for Bathory. At that time, Pella was in the band Morbid, and their rehearsal space was the same building that Bathory used, and that's where they met. I'm not saying they were besties, but the two had a more than passing acquaintance, which is probably why the only criticism I've seen lobbed at Pella in this movie is that he wasn't in it long enough. But when you consider it, Pella only being in this movie for about 10 minutes makes sense. Jonas and Pella started out as the 1980s version of online friends, meaning they exchanged letters and phone calls, but were only friends IRL for about 3 years. The personal connection Jonas had to Pella comes across very clearly in how respectfully the character is handled. He's not treated as the circus freak a lot of mayhem and black metal fans see him as, nor is he portrayed as romantically suffering. He's shown as what he was, a kid with some serious problems who expressed his feelings in a unique way and who would really have benefited from some professional help. I admit I was at first unhappy at how graphically his suicide is portrayed, especially knowing about the existence of the album cover, but I quickly realized that however difficult, it needed to be shown so it could be demystified, de-romanticized, and de-glorified. This is something I didn't notice until about my 5th or 6th watch through. This scene when Pella's stripping to bury his clothes with the intention of letting them rot. They're already rotted! If he buried those for a few days, he'd be lucky to have the main seams left. He'd end up wearing these. Wait, $168 for this? Seriously? And they're sold out? Dude, I'm in the wrong business. Fuck this YouTube gig. I'm gonna start a new fashion line.
With blackjack and hookers.
I got something to say. I killed a baby to the man wants to be as long as she's pretty.
There's nothing more annoying than watching a movie featuring people who are supposed to be rockers/metalheads and seeing them unable to properly metal. So as part of their preparation, the cast members attended a black metal boot camp hosted by Hungarian black metal band Bornholm. They showed the actors how to play their instruments believably, apply corpse paint, pose, and generally comport themselves in an authentically metal way.
Exactly what you did for the Lords of Chaos film.
Yeah, they needed people, it's a very important part of the movie, the musical parts, where the actors had to play really on instruments, on guitars and drums and everything else. And they needed somebody who can help them to do this just look real. And they found us, and as I remember, we met in a rehearsal room in Budapest. And the first day, we were waiting 6 hours or something to arrive, the guys and Jonas. And we were thinking, two of us made all the work from the band, David, a drummer, and me. And we were thinking what's gonna happen. And after 6 hours, they arrived, and they came in the room. And Jonas told the guys, okay, just take one instrument, take the second one, sit next to the drums, and do something, anything. And they did a really, really big noise. So you cannot imagine what happened there. and it was 10 minutes of hell, you know.
Yeah.
Nobody could play on anything. And after when they're gone, and we're starting to frighten. Oh man, what gonna we do? So we didn't have any clue.
Yeah.
But I have to say, after we had our daily test, so from every morning, sometimes 6 or 8 hours, we had to be in the rehearsal room and practice with the guys, and they did an awesome work, and very good.
Wilson Gonzalez Ochsenknecht, yep, totally pulled that one off, no problem, who played Blackthorn, was a metal fan before the movie and auditioned hard when he heard that Lords of Chaos was being made because he really wanted to be a part of it, and in an added twist of irony, he actually knows some of the guys in Scorpions. I've already covered Jonas Åkerlund's links to metal and black metal especially, so I'm not going to continue beating a dead vocalist while he's already down. But for those who still don't like it, here's a few more metal bands that Åkerlund has worked with. And while the rest of the cast didn't really know much about black metal before working on this movie, Rory Culkin has confirmed that he still has a few Mayhem songs on rotation in his personal playlist, and Jack Kilmer has become a definite metal convert after making this film. This entire movie was shot over 18 days. That's a grueling schedule no matter how simplistic a shoot is planned, and I gotta say, given the long days that would have been required to get this filmed, especially for the monster scenes like the party, the gig, and the murders, I must tip my hat to the entire cast and crew for pulling it off. Well done! Let's look at what I love about this movie, which includes the absolutely exquisite level of small detail and fan Easter eggs in the film. There are so many that I am still noticing new ones with every watch through, some of which I missed entirely until I was able to watch Lords of Chaos on a screen much bigger than my laptop. So let's talk details, Easter eggs, and all the rest.
Some things in life are bad. They can really make you mad. Other things just make you swear and curse.
So many shots in this movie recreate original photos. Here's a quick There's also a few moments that don't recreate photos exactly, but allude to a photo or a story. Take, for example, this quick shot from the party scene where Pella is menacing someone with a circular saw. Now, look at this photo of Pella in corpse paint holding a circular saw. Isn't that great?
When you're chewing on life's gristle, don't grumble, give a whistle. And this'll help things turn out for the best.
So many recreated looks and clothes, exact copies of outfits worn in photos and videos. Also, I have been wondering for years what that shirt has said, so if nothing else, I am grateful to this movie for answering that fucking question. And I know I kinda dissed on this woods scene earlier, but I realized upon rewatch that the costume Jack Kilmer is wearing in this scene in the woods is a replica of this outfit Pella is wearing in this video, filmed in the field outside Mayhem's early rehearsal space, the hen house on Necker Butcher's family property, which is a nice touch, having Jack Kilmer in this outfit for this scene where they may not have been in a field, but it was outdoors and them having fun, until Pella had to go and make it all dark again. And these outfits are original pieces, by the way, no costume department recreations here. Well, okay, maybe a few, but most sourced from original 1980s and 90s collections, including a few museum pieces.
Always look on the bright side of life.
The obvious makeup is, of course, the scar that's been added to Emery's chin. This reflects a scar on Varg's face, which he claims to have received during a skiing accident when he was around 10 or 11. But I'd also like to draw attention to the scars that litter Jack Kilmer's inner arms. In every scene where Jack's arms are bare, he has these scars. Sure, his wig sucks, but the arm scars are a great little detail that is never overlooked or forgotten. And of course, everyone's got their proper corpse paint designs, which is nice to see. I mean, you couldn't have really done this movie without them, but I wouldn't have put it past a bigger studio demanding they not be included, as it would have been too weird or risked alienating audiences. Metal gods bless independent cinema, even Vice.
Always look on the light side of life.
As the House of Klokstad is privately owned and already has to deal with enough metal tourists as it is, and the original location of Helvete is currently being used by a different business, Åkerlund had to find stand-ins, and I think he did a pretty good job of finding two places that had the same look, design, and feel of those original spaces. Åkerlund was also able to get establishing shots of the apartment building that Euronymous was living in when he was murdered, though he wasn't able to film any of the interior scenes there.
If life seems jolly rotten, there's something you've forgotten, and that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing.
This train station scene. You see that logo spray painted off to the side of the Mayhem logo? You see that one? There, that one, there, you see that? That is the name of Euronymous and Mannheim's side project instrumental band, of which there exists only one recording/video of the only gig they ever played back in 1986. Love that little Easter egg. The typewriter! Euronymous' famous red typewriter, as strong an icon of black metal as Mayhem's logo or the cover of Dark Throne's Ablaze in the Northern Sky. I don't know who this is supposed to be, but I love that he's been corpse painted. As well as the envelope and rotting crucified rat, the tape included comes wrapped in red paper. I completely geeked out when I saw this because that's exactly how Morbid's December Moon demo was mailed out. This blink and you miss it shot of Burzum's Aske being sold with a couple of matches, that is absolutely true and actually seriously happened. So awesome. All the tapes. Just tapes in general. Remember tapes? Physical media forever. Anyone else remember tapes? Remember tape? No? Just me. Damn it. The pig heads. Here's a fun story. So the film didn't have the budget to get fake pig heads, so they just went and bought a bunch of actual pig heads, which they used makeup on to give them that slightly past its expiration date look. So those Hungarian metalheads who decided to chomp down on that head, yeah, that's a real pig's head that they're hewing into. Being the resident posterity photographer, Metallion is featured several times with a photo or video camera in hand. Turns out that video camera wasn't just there to look good. The shots that are intercut during the gig and party are taken from the film that actor Sam Coleman was actually recording during these scenes. A nice little touch of Easter egg authenticity to these moments, even if the analog tape did have to be digitized in order to be added in. And of course, Helvete, both the interior of the store itself and Euronymous' offer. Some side-by-side comparison photos here, just so many matching details, which is so great.
When you're feeling in the dumps, don't be silly chumps. Just purse your lips and whistle, that's the thing.
Almost every scene that has Euronymous in it has Coca-Cola in it, whether a bottle, cup, sign, or whatever. One thing Euronymous was known for was his love of Coca-Cola. So many photos of Euronymous hanging out with his friends, you will see a bottle of Coke in there somewhere. Though I do wonder if the movie had to pay any fees or gain any permissions from Coke. Explains where the budget went to, if so.
And always look on the bright side of life. Come on!
As I mentioned, a lot of people complain about the lack of metal in this movie, despite the high level of diegetic metal. But what I'm talking about here is the original score written by Stephen Arndt. It's very evocative of the Norwegian landscape and the odd desolation that it inspires. I really enjoyed listening to it, and I've used it as the background music for this video. I'll link where you can buy it online in the description below for those interested.
Always look on the right side of life.
I know a lot of people have said there's cringy acting in this movie, and yeah, there are a few scenes that would make anybody sink down in their chair and cover their faces in sympathetic embarrassment, but for the most part, there are some really good, really strong, really subtle performances here. Look at this scene between Euronymous and Varg after Varg has burned the church. Watch the facial expressions, the tone of voices, the way Euronymous has firmly established a narrative and is expecting Varg to back him up, the level of awareness in Varg's eyes as he internally realizes how full of shit Euronymous is and how he always brings the focus back to himself. They're very good performances that are completely underrated. And these scenes, the back and forth between these two, Varg wanting so badly to be accepted by Euronymous, listening to him as though he's a font of wisdom, and Euronymous is so clearly just shooting his mouth off, but Varg takes it as gospel. Euronymous' reaction when Varg mentions Pella's suicide, so great. But mostly the scooching, it always makes me giggle with the, you see the scooch, scooch, scooch.
Scooch closer. Don't make me tell you again about the scooching.
This scene.
Did your father stop paying the rent? I'm gonna fucking kill him. You're gonna kill your father? It's fucking sick.
No, Varg. I'm gonna kill Varg.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's just, oh, Faust, oh, you're gonna kill your father? Oh, that's fucking sick. No, I'm gonna kill Varg. And Faust is like, oh, that's alright then. No, okay, yeah, no, killing your father, that's sick, but killing Varg, yeah, no, that's fine. He doesn't want to kill him.
Great job.
She's only in this movie for 2 scenes, but Rory and Flora Slodus? Rory and Flora are just so cute together. I have no difficulty buying into their sibling relationship, and a nice touch is that Flora plays Euronymous' sister at age 8, but for this shot at the end of the film after he's been murdered when she's 13, the actress playing her is Flora's older sister Anna. I think it's a nice touch just to get that older sibling in to play the older version of the character, just for this one silent shot instead of trying to like age up the younger actress or faff about trying to find someone who looks alike enough. But overall, I would very happily have watched more of these two interacting and being siblings. They're just so great together, it's so cute, and it really does help humanize Euronymous, so absolutely some of my favorites there. Also, can I get some love for the Salvation Army woman? A great transition into Melinda Maria Mattei singing a cappella here and just nailing it, then getting yelled at by Rory Culkin in his tidy readies. Round of applause for her, she's awesome.
For life is quite absurd, and death's the final word. You must always face the curtain with a bow.
All these extras who are based on real people who were around the scene at the time. Italian, as mentioned, played by Sam Coleman. Occultist, played by Lucien Charles Collier. Fenris, played by Andrew Lavelle. Blackthorn, played by William Gonzalez Oshkin, fucking Germans, played by Wilson. All these people who aren't integral to the story, but who were there as the real events played out. So great to see them there, even if only in the background. Akerlund was really disappointed he wasn't able to focus on these other people who were integral to the foundation of
True Norwegian black man.
And he has said he would love to have made this story into a series rather than a movie.
Forget about your scene. Give the audience a grin. Enjoy it. It's your last chance anyhow.
There are 3 cameos in this film which are of note. The first is Arion Kassar, who, as I mentioned, is the son of current Mayhem vocalist Attila, and who played his father in this very short scene showing the recording of Die Mysterious Dom Satanas. Turns out it was just random chance that he ended up in the movie. Arion's had aspirations toward acting for several years now, having been featured in a few short films, and it just so happened that his management agency was filling roles for extras in Lords of Chaos when they realized that they had the son of the very man they were trying to cast on their books. So they called him, offered him the role, and Arion happily accepted with the full support of his father, who was even on set on the day that they filmed his scenes. The other cameo was by this guy, Jason Arnop, a writer for Kerrang! Magazine who wrote the article referenced in the film and who played himself. There is a great video he uploaded to YouTube about his cameo and why he hated it, which is fun to check out if you're interested. He even shows a clip of himself rehearsing by himself in his hotel room, which is hilarious. Go check out his video, it's great. Jason admits he was baffled about why Akerlund wanted him in the movie, as he's not an actor, but put it down to Akerlund's desire to present the story as realistically as possible. But kudos to Jason for going full method by spending all those years as a journalist for Kerrang! And spending all those other years perfecting the role of Jason Arnop, which he just totally nails. And it was great to watch that interview on the Blu-ray of the movie as well. Definitely my favorite of the extra features.
Wink, wink.
But the greatest cameo, by far, is this one. You missed it, didn't you? You see that building? You see that one there? That, my friends, is the original location of Helvete in Oslo. They may not have been able to film in that location, but they made sure it got a look in. I wonder how many people who watched this movie even realized it.
So always look on the bright side of death.
All the effects in this movie are practical. That means they're all real effects with barely any CGI, and I am so here for it. Really, all that the CGI was used for was removing a few prop aids and extending the length of shortened prop knives. In the case of Pella, they had a bunch of prop knives which they used in the gig scene for when he's cutting himself on stage that have all these little blood tubes inserted so they can hold it from different angles and have the blood come out that way. For his suicide, they built him a fake neck piece with different bloodlines which allowed him to do a sort of proper full-on slice across the whole thing. And for the shotgun scene, they had an actual head puppet with an air cannon built into it for a shotgun, and they just cut back and forth between the two. Naturally, there was also a sculpted headpiece with masses of fake blood and gore which Jack wore during the scenes where Euronymous discovers his body and takes all the photos. For the murder of Magne Andreasen committed by Faust, another puppet body was made with blood bags that could be stabbed for all those great close-ups. There were a bunch of prosthetics also made for the actor, but this was definitely the simplest of the two murders. As for Euronymous' murder scene, this is of course the bloodiest scene in the whole movie. Many fake knives were used. Literally, these blades tend to be very delicate and break easily, so several were created. The shot where Varg stabs Euronymous in the head involved a skull cap which had a blood tube in it, and this small steel bar which the prop knife was slid over so that Emery could actually lift Rory's head up when he tried to unjam the knife. There's a nice short little featurette on the Blu-ray disc where the special effects designer explains each effect, and I highly recommend anyone who's interested in this aspect of practical effects to go watch it. It's really informative. And last but not least, the church burnings. Because Jonas Åkerlund wanted the movie to be as real as possible, he wanted to burn down as many churches as possible. Must have been his inner black metal head speaking to him. So the crew managed to gain permission to film inside the rebuilt churches that had been targeted by the Black Circle, which may have caused a little discomfort for those who remember what happened the last time people named Varg, Euronymous, and Faust entered those buildings. They also built a bunch of miniatures to really get those authentic burning building shots. But for those who have spent time reaming this movie a new one, you may be surprised to learn that the great Hollywood director Ridley Scott was an ardent supporter of the project. So much so that when he found out Lords of Chaos didn't have the budget to buy the wood they wanted and needed to build variously scaled versions of these churches to burn, Ridley Scott himself donated the wood from the sets he'd had built for Blade Runner 2049, which had also been filming in Budapest. Burn, Blade Runner LA, burn! And even more old school, these were not controlled burns. There were no gas lines or controllable flames. They just set the cameras rolling, doused the entire thing in petrol, threw a lit match at it, and ran like hell. So fuck you haters. In a world saturated with computer effects, this film is a triumph of the practical.
Just before you draw your terminal breath.
I love that this movie ends with a final shot of the memorial and candles outside Euronymous' formal apartment, which focuses on a photo of the real Pella and Euronymous. It's a really nice touch, and I love the inclusion. So many biopics never actually show any real images of the real-life people they're about, and it's a serious fault, in my opinion. It's a really great way to remind audiences that this isn't a made-up story. Despite the fictional elements, these two people lived and died horrible deaths way too young. I also really liked how there were no end cards in this movie. With many biopics, you get these end cards telling you about the ending of the story that isn't covered, and it's nice to have a movie where none of that is included. However, you just know if this had been a Hollywood production, there would have been end cards reassuring the audience that Varg was convicted of Euronymous' murder, his sentence, how much he served, all of that, which is irrelevant given that this is a movie about Euronymous, so we don't need to know anything beyond the ending because that's when his life ended. Which leads me to the end credits. The end credits feature behind-the-scenes photos of the original Mayhem, and my personal favorite, many of Pella's drawings, which is such a great touch and a wonderful tribute to such an iconic figure of black metal. Hey look, there's Necrobird! Not as much fun as Crucified Kermit, wish he'd gotten a look in. Maybe they couldn't due to Disney owning the Muppets and they didn't want to get sued. But absolutely love this tribute to one of the saddest icons of black metal.
Life's a piece of shit when you look at it. Life's a laugh and death's a joke, it's true. You'll see it's all a show, keep 'em laughing as you go. Just remember that the last laugh is on you.
I realize these are created by the fans and have absolutely nothing to do with the movie officially, but here are some of my favorite Lords of Chaos related memes, and this one video that jokes about eating cornflakes with chocolate milk to help people build up their strength for when they also go to kill Euronymous. Circle back to that one scene, the most lampooned and complained about scene in this entire film. This is the scene at the end where, mid-murder, as Euronymous is scrambling to try and find his keys and escape his attacker, Varg stops to make himself a glass of chocolate milk and scull it down. Now, there's a few reasons why people hate this scene. If nothing else, it would have been more on brand had Varg stopped to make a bowl of cornflakes, but that would have required more time to eat, even if he does prefer them crispy. So why does the movie make a point of letting us know that Varg's got milk? Well, it all relates back to this scene, where Varg walks into Helvetate and tries to establish himself as being true cult.
Beer!
No thanks, I don't drink. You want a glass of milk? You want a glass of milk?
The point of the drinking milk scene during the murder is to show that Varg is comfortable in his own metalness and doesn't need Euronymous' approval of his every move in order to be
true Norwegian black metal.
Black metal is not a genre known for its subtlety, quite the opposite. The point of black metal is to shove you face first into their iconography and ideology and bury you up to the neck in death, despair, and
Satan.
Consequently, as this is a movie that will at least pique the interest of black metal heads, I think a lot of the more subtle aspects of Lords of Chaos has kind of flown over many heads. Yet, despite audience complaints about insulting and inaccurate portrayals, the one person who was done the dirtiest by this movie wasn't Varg. It wasn't Euronymous, it wasn't Necrobutcher, or Hellhammer, or Faust, or Mannheim. No, the worst done by this movie is this guy. This guy, who in the cast listing is credited as Varg's driver. This guy had a bigger role than this guy, who is listed in the cast, but not this guy. Apparently, they didn't name him for legal reasons. I have no idea what those may have been or how it applies, but either way, I still think it's kinda dirty. This guy, so you know, is based on a man named Snorre Blackthorn Root. He is a black metal guitarist who replaced Euronymous in that short period after Euronymous died, but before Blackthorn was arrested as an accessory to his murder. He is the dum-dum of this movie. He is Varg's whipping boy and is shown to be an absolute idiot, though that
anyone?
Is hilarious. Seriously, it makes me giggle every time, especially when listening to this recorded interview with Blackthorn from 2021. He gets up in the beginning of the interview to make some tea and offers some to the host. Clearly, tea is very important to Blackthorn. I'd like to meet him one day so that I may offer him some tea. Blackthorn has never really talked about that night or his involvement in it. He was charged as an accessory, but even Varg stood up for him, saying Blackthorn was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Blackthorn is a sweet guy who didn't deserve to be portrayed as Varg's idiot lackey. Hashtag justice for Blackthorn. What people don't realize is this isn't a music biopic about Mayhem, it's a biopic about Euronymous. It's not Mayhem through Euronymous' eyes, the way Bohemian Rhapsody is Queen through Freddie Mercury's eyes. It's Euronymous, who was, among other things, a member of the band Mayhem and who helped create
Norwegian black metal.
None of this film's sins are worse than that of any other biopic, but there's also really nothing to make this movie stand out from all those other biopics except maybe the fact that it's about such an obscure person from a commercially obscure branch of the heavy metal tree. A lot of reviews give this movie a medium ranking, and I admit I find it difficult to argue with that opinion. It's not a terrible movie, but neither is it a so bad it's good movie. It's a very middle of the rank film. It's more accurate than most metalheads give it credit for, and it's certainly way more subtle than black metal has any right to be, but overall it's just meh. However, when you add in the amazing level of detail that covers this thing from beginning to end, it definitely ups the score, for me at least. Look, I could talk about this movie for hours, and like I said, there's always stuff I'm noticing for the first time with every rewatch. Much like other biopics, this is less a movie and more of a Wikipedia article, which is a great way to introduce people to the history of black metal in general and Mayhem specifically. It certainly inspired me to learn more about this dark corner of metal evolution, the people who influenced, and the mark they left behind them. Whether you love it or hate it, all I can say for sure is, when it comes to movies directed by former music video directors, I'll take Jonas Åkerlund over Zack Snyder any day. Though I was a little disappointed we didn't get to see Emery Cohen rocking Varg's iconic Pippi Longstocking braids. And hey, if all of that's not enough to cause you to watch Lords of Chaos, then may I recommend watching it while playing this drinking game I came up with. When life gives you lemons, make a drinking game with them. It might help the more pedantic of you get through the whole movie, though you may not remember much of it in the morning. Always drink in moderation, and this channel will not be held liable for any hangovers or other ill effects experienced by those who participate in this game. Thanks again to everyone for watching, especially those who managed to get through the whole thing. This movie has popped up in Mayhem discussions since its release, and I've wanted to do a deep dive about it, addressing people's criticisms and complaints. Now that's been done, let us never speak of it again. Leave your comments below, do tell me if anyone takes on that drinking game. Smash the like button, subscribe, suggest movies for future analysis and comments, blah 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 blah. This video's gone on way too long, so I won't drag it out. Crispy cornflakes forever!